Symposium.
Okay, guys, we're ready. All right, just a couple things. Mahmoud, you're still not getting the how to do the audio questions. So after class, we'll talk about that too. Okay, remind me. Okay. Yeah, remember, latecomers, don't be late. You're losing a point each time, right? As soon as we open the groups, that's it. You know you're late. If you come in the class and there's groups going on, you know you're late and you know you've missed points. So be careful with that because it goes away quickly. It accumulates. In fact, if I didn't call your name, you know you're late. So those of you who I don't recognize right now, like you over there with, are you Lynn? Okay. Maybe I can't do this. I can't do this.
Starts with G.
Yeah, I know. I see it. But let me say it, please.
Gwiaździński.
Gwiaździński. Yes? Gwiaździński. I'll get it eventually. Who else did I miss? Who else waltzed in here? Ingram, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right? Okay, so now you know you guys are good. Okay, good. Before we start, I want to talk a little bit about the final project because now you are actually ready to start working on it. I think I mentioned already, right? Final project is you are going to be reading something that I wrote on the Song of Songs. So now that we finished the Song of Songs, you have the background, you have the expertise, you can begin reading this book, right? This is the book that I want you to get. It's called Womanist Wisdom in the Song of Songs, Secrets of an African Princess. This is a commentary on this book, and I'm bringing in this commentary a whole lot of what we're going to be talking about in class. All of the authors we're going to be studying, I'm quoting. So I'm interpreting the book in light of all of the authors that we're studying. So by the end of class, you should be able, this read should be just like, how do you say, a breeze, right? So you can start actually reading now. And remember, the only thing you have to do is you read the whole book, you enjoy it, you tell all your friends about it, and then you put a review for me on Amazon, okay? And it can be a bad review. Please, somebody do a bad review. It looks really unbalanced right now. It looks totally fake, like I've orchestrated this, which I have, right? So I need a little more bad reviews. So if you're feeling critical and you feel you have a few critiques to make, please put them and give me 3 stars, right? Don't give me 4 stars. I need a little variety here. I had one really bad review once. It was amazing. It was actually quite good. He actually pinpointed some of the problems, and then his mom told him to change it. Like she had compassion on me. I was like, no, this was great. And he changed it to something really boring. So yeah, please spice things up, okay? Critical ones in the classroom. I know you're here. I know you're dying to do this. Go for it, right? I need something interesting to read. Okay, yes.
What does this do?
This is at the end of the semester, like, I don't know, last day, right? Now, the book, if you notice, is very expensive on Amazon. So you have 2 choices. You can either rent it for 20 bucks on Amazon, or you have 3 choices. Or you can check it out at the library. In fact, I should put it on reserve, that way you have access. It's in the library. Or you can buy a copy at the author's discount, which is $35. So you would tell me, you would give me the $35, and then I purchase it for you, and I can give you the discounted copy. So if you start reading it and you realize, oh, I want to get actual copies, beautiful cover. Like I really love this. I'm really happy of the cover. It's a beautiful woman, really. It's perfect. So, so if you feel like as you start reading it, you want to have your own copy, tell me by next time. Right? Tell me by next week so I have time to order it and get it in the mail and bring it to you. And you would just, I don't know, Venmo me or something, the $35, and then I give you your own copy for the basically almost half price, right? Because I think right now it's terrible. It's like 60 bucks. Yes, insane. Don't get me started. So, so any questions on the project? Yes.
In the library?
It's in the library, and I think I should go and put it on reserve. So you can like kind of read it for a couple hours and then put it back. So we could do that. Yeah, we could do that. So I have to remind myself. Would you be so kind as to send me an email to remind me to put it on reserve in the library? You won't remember? Who can do this? Thank you. Because I will forget. That way I put it on reserve, and then if you really just want to read it, you check it out for a couple hours, right? I'll put a limit. That way it's always available to you guys if you want to just sit and relax and read it with a nice cup of coffee. That's how you should be reading this book, right? It should be really enjoyable. Okay, any other questions? No, we're good. Shall we get into Plato, Symposium? All right, so let's get into the text. Today. Now, I need my phone. I knew I was missing something on this table. Here we go. Just feeling naked. Now I know why. Okay. Good. All right. Anybody cold yet? Are we good with the doors open? Yes, all good. Have the airplanes going through the building. Okay. All right. So now we're entering very different world, right? We are entering the world of the Greeks, where everything is much more ordered. Everything is much more. These thinkers are much more prudent, much more. Everything seems. They will give you actually excellent advice if you don't want to mess up. Right. So we saw in the Song of Songs. Song of Songs is just invitation. Just go, throw yourself in the relationship as you live and experience your partner, you will grow together. That's the idea of the Song of Songs. Basically, Song of Songs is saying you don't need prior experience, you don't need prior wisdom. You can get in there for all the wrong reasons, right? You can be reckless lover, crazy, but as you grow together, as you begin to experience your lover and your relationship deepens, you actually can grow together and become wiser together as you experience the relationship together, right? So there is no prior wisdom needed, right? In the Song of Songs. Anyone, no matter how immature you are, boom, you jump in the relationship. If you're willing to stick with it, you will grow more and more mature and more wise through the experience, through the contact with your beloved, right? So, and we saw that it's just perseverance and humility to change will get you to be you. That is what will form you into a wise and skillful lover, right? So you don't need to learn this beforehand. Throw yourself in the relationship, stay there long enough, right, for the transformation to take place. That's what we're saying. Now the Greeks are very different, right? What we'll see in this text is you need to have a little bit of wisdom prior. You need to think things through very carefully, and then you enter the relationship, right? So the Greeks are much more prudent. They believe that wisdom is found outside of experience. This is not a Hebrew idea, right? For the Hebrews, wisdom is found in experience. But the Greeks believe, no, you have to first tap into wisdom of love in general, study it, and then you know what to do when you're in the relationship. So for those of us who are a little bit cautious, this is going to be great for you. You will really resonate with the Greeks. Okay, I'm going to pick 3 authors out of the 6. So some of you were asking about the test question. Was that you?
Yeah.
So now you know what we're doing. He's like, wait, there's 6 authors. Why are you talking just about 3 for the test? Because we're only going to choose 3. Okay. So I'm going to look at Pausanias, Pausanias. Pausanias. It's in your book. You just look in your book. Pausanias, Aristophanes, and then Agathon. These are the 3 I'm going to focus on. Now, as we get into this, I want you to pay closely attention. Pausanias, Aristophanes, Agathon. Just spell it however you want, but fix it later on, please, by looking at the book. All right. Pausanias, Aristophanes, Agathon. Okay. So, what I want you to pay attention to as I'm teaching. Pausanias, Aristophanes, Agathon. I don't feel like getting up to that. Yeah, I don't feel like getting up and writing them. Become smart. Okay. All right. Where was I? Yes. Okay. So this is what I want you to pay attention to. All 3 of them are going to sound very different, but there's a common denominator to all 3 of them. All 3 of them have the same problem, actually. And I'm going to ask you at the end of class, what's their problem? What do they all fail to think about, right? Are you ready to to think this through, right? So remember, at the end, I'm going to ask you, okay, so how are all these three the same in a bad way? So we're going to look into the good advice. They certainly have excellent advice. I agree with the advice, but there is a deep flaw to the advice they're giving. There's something missing, right? And that's what I want to look at. Okay, so the airplanes are driving me crazy. Does somebody want to, from both sides, go close the doors for me? Thank you. This is not going to work out.
Professor, I'm sorry. This one, Aristophanes?
Yes, it says Aristophanes.
Thank you.
What? Pausanias, Aristophanes, Agathon. Look, come after class if you're still struggling with, with who we're talking about. You come after class if you still don't know who we did. Okay, Pausanias, let's go there. In fact, I'll give you the pages so you can find them, page 13. All right. Here, Pausanias is going to start out by talking about two kinds of love. Higher love, lower love. Okay, so here's my question to you to start out with. Whom do you fall in love when you are in the higher love? And whom do you fall in love with when you are in the lower love category? Does anybody remember?
From the book, or you mean
From the book,
No, I don't remember.
Who remembers?
Women are lower love and men are higher love.
Yes, not only women are lower love. Who else is in the lower love category? There's someone else, not just the women. Anybody remember? Who?
Boys.
Boys. Yes, exactly. Younger boys. Okay, so let's look at why he says this, right? Okay, so he's saying, right, so let's write this down, right, that the higher love, when you're in love in a high level, you fall in love with older men, right, as a man. And when you're in love in the low level, you're actually falling in love with women or younger boys. So let's ask ourselves, why do you think, remember what I told you about Plato, right, in the introductory lecture? Why do you think that it is a lower love to love a woman and a young boy? What does a woman have in common with a young boy? Let's hear it, yeah.
Their youth or beauty.
Their what?
Youth.
Their
youth.
Their youth.
Youth.
Used.
Youth. Y-O-U-T-H.
No, woman could be old.
Youth.
It's fine. Any woman, any age, the woman. You're on the right track, though. You're on the right track. And what is wrong with being in love with youth and beauty?
Not necessarily that. I mean, as opposed to higher love, I interpret that as like, because later he talks about like the lovers of the common.
That's the lower love, right? The common love. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more about things that fade as opposed to like loving the mind.
Okay.
I think is what they meant.
You got it. Very good. Very good. Anyone wanted to add? Yes, go ahead. You're almost there. They're missing something, the women and the boys, but it's not only that. What?
They both share compassion from like.
That's true, but that's not, the text is saying something else that the women and the boys are missing. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, Nora, go ahead.
I was just going to say lust.
So yes, it's lust. So what are the women missing? What do they not have? And also the young boys don't have that. Intelligence, right? Absolutely. Okay, so let's summarize, right? When you fall in love with a woman or a young boy, here's the problem, right? Problem is, what do you fall in love with? Certainly not the mind. Why? Because the mind of a woman hasn't been educated. She has probably no topic of conversation. So why you love her, right? She has nothing to talk with. Yeah, exactly. You love her because her body. Now, when you just love the body, where are you in terms of the cave? Inside of the cave or outside of the cave? Remember Plato's cave?
Inside.
Inside of the cave, you're stuck in the material realm, right? You're stuck just here dealing with loving material things, being attracted by material things. You are not drawn out of the cave. What would draw you out of the cave? Loving who?
Man.
A man with intelligence who has, developed his mind, who has an education, who has conversation. And now you are going to be, of course, not attracted so much to the body, right? But that doesn't matter because now you're attracted to the mind. And this is taking you outside of the cave, right? I see some women looking at me like, what's going on, right? So that's exactly what they're saying, right? So when you fall in love with a younger boy or a woman, clearly you're not in love with their intelligence because their intelligence is not developed. They are not educated. Therefore, there's no conversation there for you. Surely then you only love the body. And at that moment, boom, they have trapped you into the cave. Whereas if you want to leave the cave, you need to put your affections on someone who is maybe less attractive, but their mind is inspiring and exciting. And this is what will lead you out of the cave, right? Okay, so that's the idea, right, in Pausanias. So of course, we need to ask ourselves, why is it that it's better to love the mind than the body? What does Pausanias say? Why is it better when you fall in love to be in love with the mind primordially and then the body? Yes.
Since the body fades, the mind.
Exactly, right? Let's go to page 16. He says this on page 16. Go to the first paragraph, the last sentence. Actually, let's read a little before, right? The fourth line from the top. A bad man, right? Someone who loves lower beings, right? A bad man in the connection of the in this connection is the lover of the common type who loves the body rather than the mind. And when this happens, this man is not constant because he loves something that is not constant, right? The body fades. As soon as the bloom of the body fades, which is what attracted him, he flies away and is gone, right? Bringing disgrace on all he said and promised. And this is the line you underline. But the man who loves goodness of character is constant throughout his life since he has become united with something constant. Okay, so let's leave the Greek world a little bit and see what we can learn from this, right? Obviously, we don't think like this anymore, but there's still some wisdom there. What is the main idea that we should retain, all of us, leaving behind some of the archaisms, right? Yes.
Loving the mind of the body.
Exactly, right? This is advice, basic advice. Yes, you want to add?
And when you speak of the concept, not, I guess, like going too in depth into it, but rather accepting the flow of your existence and consciousness as like the moment when you say like surrender to the concept, which is just like as you know.
Yes, meaning the constant is the part of you, which is the mind, right?
And
So
there's like looking at the fact that your soul and its impact throughout the people your impact will live on forever. So
yes,
surrender to that.
exactly. Love the soul, not the body, right? You should fall in love first and foremost, right? This is great advice, right? When you fall in love, if you want a lasting relationship, right? If you want a one-night stand, do the body by all means. Right? Don't bother with the mind. It's gonna haunt you, right? But if you want something durable, right? You want to make sure you are also, right? The body, sure, you can fall in love with it, but you must also be in love with the soul and the spirit and the mind of that person, right? And of course, male or female, we're transcending these categories, right? So that's a great advice, because if you love the mind and not just the body, you know your love will last, because the mind is always going to be there, whereas the body will change, right? Obviously. So that's first advice, pretty good advice. Wise, right? Wise advice, telling you be careful. Make sure that you gauge, right? Don't rush into it. Make sure that it's not just your body who wants this person, but that you have a deeper attraction to their soul, that you have a connection to their soul or their mind or their spirit. Then you have chances for it to succeed, right? Okay, that's the first one. Any questions on the first one? All right, let's get to the second one. The second one should be a favorite, because the second one is going to reveal to us how to find our soulmates. Yes, I know you've heard tons of websites and books on that, but today you're going to find out the truth. Okay, so right, this idea of the soulmate, right? A lot of us kind of have this notion, right, that maybe there is someone out there who completes me, who was made for me, who is waiting out there to be found by me. This is the idea of the soulmate, right, which Aristophanes is going to talk about. But he's going to do more than describe the soulmate. He's going to help us recognize in this world what the soulmate looks like so we don't miss them, right? So this is going to be a very insightful moment where you're going to learn how to create a good radar so that you don't waste time with people who are not your soulmate, and immediately you can see, that person, and then you go for it and it's going to work because it's your soulmate, right? So really great advice. So let's look into Aristophanes, what he has to say. So first of all, he tells a story, right? What is the story he tells? It's a funny story about the creation of the soulmate. Anybody remember this story? Yes, go ahead.
Is that the one about Orpheus?
Oh my God, what do you mean? I don't remember Orpheus. But go on.
The player who went down to Hades.
No, it's not that one.
No, not that
What is story he tells about the soulmate? Anybody remember? I'll go with, sorry, let's do Fiora. Go ahead. Exactly. Right, exactly. Originally, he says we were created with our other half. Right? So remember, this is a myth. This is not that the Greeks are idiots who believe crazy stories, right? This is a philosophical story telling us not necessarily how things happened literally, right? This is not necessarily saying this is how it actually happened. This is a story that is supposed to give us insight into what it means to be human and so forth. So it's a philosophical story. It's like a parable. So this is a story. Originally, we were made bound to our soulmate. We were one with our soulmate. And we got so powerful in that powerful partnership, right, and union, that the gods became jealous and afraid. And so they cut us in half, right? And so it's interesting because this account gives an explanation for also same-sex couples, right? Because some of us were bound with female-female, others male-male, and then male-female. So it's a kind of, today's readers would be quite comfortable reading that, oh, okay, I have female soulmate or male soulmate or different gender, right? So we were united with that person at the origin of time, and then we were cut off from them. And ever since now, we have this kind of deep wound where we feel incomplete and we feel something, we always feel nostalgic, like something is missing until we are able to reunite with the right person. Because sometimes you unite with someone makes you feel worse, right? More alone, the wound goes even deeper. So when you find the right person, we believe, right? Finally, I can relax. I have found my soulmate. I am complete. That's the idea. And a lot of us, to be honest, actually believe this. And I think it's okay to believe it. And it's going to be interesting. For the million-dollar question, of course, will be, okay, if there is such a person, right? How do I recognize them? Because it's not obvious. We fall into relationship after relationship thinking we're going to find our soulmate kind of randomly and blindly stumbling into different relationships. And right, Aristophanes is going to say, no, you need to know what your soulmate looks like. So you don't end up over here with this person married for 20 years with a bunch of kids, stuck with someone who's not your soulmate, right? So we need to be smart. That's the Greek way. Hebrews would be like, you can make it work, right? Hebrews would be like, y'all grow together, you know. But the Greeks are like, You need to be smart about your relationship decisions and make sure you pick the right person if it's gonna work out, right? No amount of hard work is gonna fix a marriage, according to the Greeks, where you're with the wrong person. And many people will testify to that, right? The key to a successful marriage is choosing wisely. That would be the Greek way. Hebrews will tell you it's okay. Pick whoever. If you got the grit, you're gonna make it work, right? But the Greeks are like, no. There are some people more compatible than others to you, and you need to make sure you choose wisely. And then, no matter what happens, you can make it happen because it's your soulmate. It's meant to be, right? So make sure you write this down. The million-dollar question is, what does this soulmate look like so I can identify them and I don't end up in this relationship over here, stuck for the rest of my life, right? Or I get with this person and my soulmate, right, gets with someone else because they're lonely and then we never meet, right? We want to avoid that. So I'm going to read to you the passage and I'm going to skip around and I want you to pay attention to what is the idea that comes up over and over again, and this will tell you what your soulmate looks like. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a game, right? We're going to do detective. I'm going to read, and you should be hearing over and over again the same idea, and then you can tell me, based on the text, what the soulmate looks like. So I'm going to read here on I'm going to start on page 27. I'll just skip around. I'm on page 25. I'm going to skip around until page 27. Don't worry about the references. Okay, so he's looking here. Those who are cut off from the male gender go for males. And it's not out of shamelessness that they do this, but because they're bold, brave, masculine, and they welcome the same qualities in others. Continuing. In short, such people become lovers of boys, and boys who love their male lovers, always welcoming their shared natural character. When a lover of boys or any other type of person meets that very person who is their other half, he is overwhelmed. Continuing. Love is the name for the desire and pursuit of wholeness. Continuing, page 27. It is this ideal under present circumstances. What comes closest to it must be the best. That is to find a loved one who naturally fits your own character, who is naturally close to us, who restores us to our original nature. What does a soulmate look like?
Someone who reflects our character.
More simply, yes?
Embodies the innocent childhood that you're looking for in a chaotic world.
Be more simple.
It's you.
It's you. Soulmate, not you. It's not the soulmate
Similar,
looks like you. Now, this is really important information. Let me explain why. They're not playing with you here. It's not a game. The soulmate looks like you, and you don't look like yourself. This is going to be a problem. Meaning, you need to make sure before you start looking for your soulmate that you have become fully yourself. You see what I mean? If you go in the world a half version of yourself, you cannot find your soulmate because your soulmate is you, your best self, right? So if you go around, limping around with your worst self, undeveloped self, stunted self, you're going to find stunted soulmates, right? But if you work on yourself and you become your best self, and then you enter the dating scene, immediately, the text is saying, you don't even have to look. You will attract your soulmate, that person who reflects you perfectly. Right? So the key here is not to go out and look for it tomorrow. The key is first become yourself. Work on yourself. Who are you? Right? The problem with most of us is we get on the dating scene, we don't even know who we are. And so we end up with some random person. A few years later, we become who we are and we look at the person, we're like, why am I with you? Right? We have nothing in common. Right? This is many marriages go to hell because of that. You marry when you're 19, when you don't know who you are, right? And then you end up a few years later, you're here, they're here, and it cannot work anymore, right? So the text is saying, I'm not saying you shouldn't marry at 19, right? If you're finished at 19, go for it, right? But the text is saying, before you even think of entering the dating scene, become the fullest version of yourself. If you're still broken inside, if you're still carrying trauma, from your childhood, from your adolescence, if you still don't know who you're going to become, where you're headed, what is your name, what are your values, who are you? If you don't know this, don't even venture out because you will only attract half soulmates, half-assed soulmates, right, like you. And you will end up with some random person who doesn't fit you in 10 years when you fully become yourself, right? So the advice the Greeks are giving is wait a little bit. Before you enter a relationship, wait until you have become fully yourself. Wait until you have healed your own traumas. Wait until you have become the fullest version of yourself. Wait until you know where you're going. Once you know where you're going and you're taking that path towards your fullest self, the soulmate will appear on your path, right? So the invitation is don't even go in the dating scene until you are fully built, finished product, right? Then when you enter, boom, within months, you will attract. You don't even need, right? And you will attract someone exactly like you on your level. Now, the most of us don't do that. And so we end up in really terrible relationships. And so we're with a person where we're wondering why we're with this horrible person, right? Suppose some of us end up with people, serial cheaters or people who are so immature, they don't know how to talk to you and so forth. They don't know how to care for you. Ask yourself, the reason actually, don't blame them. If you're in a relationship that's all messed up, who should you blame?
Yourself.
Yourself, because basically, yeah, they're messed up, but guess what? The reason you attracted them is what? You messed up too. Maybe not the same. Maybe you're not a serial cheater, but maybe you're kind of victim mentality. Maybe you're a pushover, right? You're broken somewhere. Anytime you are with someone who is a difficult, who is creating you problems, who is immature, going through problems, look at yourself. Don't even look at them. Look at yourself. Who am I that I attracted this person? And you will see that, yeah, they have issues, but so do you. And sometimes you look like the victim, but actually you're the enabler. You see what I'm saying? Right? You're in a difficult relationship and you think, man, poor me, I'm such a good person, I don't deserve this. And your friends will be like, you're such a good person, the chorus, right? Such a good person, you don't deserve this. But actually, there's something in you enabling this. You haven't learned to create boundaries. You haven't learned to develop a backbone. You haven't learned to say no because you coming from past trauma that you haven't healed. And this is why you have attracted this person, right? And so anytime you're in a relationship that's all messed up, this is an indication you're not finished and you're better off taking a break, finishing yourself, and seeing what you attract then, right? See, go ahead.
This is completely different from what Solomon said.
Totally.
Completely different. Like
Totally.
even in the song, like you can tell that these two people are, you know, the root of their issues isn't because of the fact that they're different. I mean, more or less, but the guy is out there being a serial cheater or whatever, and the woman is sort of the complete opposite. So I'm not really sure I would agree with
Careful,
that.
the woman has a lot of issues too in the Song of Songs.
Yeah, but she
right?
does. It's not the same thing though.
Oh, no, I'm not saying the same thing. If he's a serial cheater, doesn't mean you are. Just means you have some issues that have attracted this. You see what I'm saying? That's what this is saying. You have some issues where you have attracted this kind of person because there's something in you that is enabling this. And this I can see. I can see this in relationships, how when you come from past trauma or abuse and you haven't learned to assert yourself, you will actually attract this kind of problems, right? And so the text is saying, become. And then you will actually attract someone on your vibration, right? Someone on your level, someone on your wavelength. And if you're going through trouble, probably because you were immature when you started this relationship. Now, if we go back to the Song of Songs, we have hope, right? Because those guys were both messed up, right? And they made it work. But the Greeks were saying, if you can avoid it, right? Be smart about your choices. Here's the path. I'm going to be attacked now by 10 questions. Go ahead, let's start, and then I'll get you guys. Go ahead, Poclevs.
I'm just giving you a devil's advocate. What if, let's say you work very so wrong in your brain, and then you meet your eventual soulmate, that is, maybe it doesn't work out.
Yes, now meeting your soulmate doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, right? For sure. In fact, your soulmate can actually sometimes be one of the most difficult people in your lives. Why? Because remember, the beloved always there to challenge you, not to cocoon you, right? We know that from Song of Songs. So this is very important. That the relationship is difficult doesn't mean it's not your soulmate. Means there's some brokenness on both sides that needs to be healed, right? So I believe that, right? They would say if there's difficulty, they might not that it's not your soulmate, but that you attracted someone on your level. It could be your soulmate, but you're both broken on the same level, right? So I would say that when there's trouble in the relationship, it's an indication, not that you're incompatible. Make sure you get this, right? Because a lot of us think when there's trouble means we're incompatible. Not necessarily. It could just mean that you're both broken on the same level to a certain degree, enabler and cheater, right? And you need to begin healing, and then you will have a more harmonious relationship, right? Does that answer your question?
So, all right. But what about another scenario where they're completely broken down, right? But somehow you manage to attract your soulmate and they don't bring you to your goals. What would that mean?
That's a good question. So you attract someone better than yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically, you're in a broken state, right?
Yeah.
You recently got in a relationship. Don't come along who you don't know is your soulmate yet, but bring you back up to your full potential.
So I would go back to Posanias for that. That person's pulling you out of the cave. That's a good one. That's a keeper, right? So they differ a little bit. Aristophanes is saying, you will only attract on your level. That's what he's saying. You disagree, right? And I agree with you that life sometimes, and that I would agree with, life sometimes gives us grace. We don't deserve this person, right? They're way beyond our own vibration or frequency, and they end up in our lives, right? So Aristophanes would disagree with this idea, but I think it exists, that sometimes life gives us grace and gives us someone better than ourselves. But I still think that there's something in them. The fact that they ended up with you, no matter how angelic they are, there's something broken that matches your brokenness. You see what I mean? And so they can still lift you up, but the fact that you were brought together, brokenness attracts brokenness, right? So I do even see that even in the most angelic partner, there's something. If they had been all together, believe me, they wouldn't be with you. I think that, right? So there's still something broken, even though they have all these good qualities. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
For your first question, you meant more sort of situation where like it's unhealthy people. I guess in that situation, wouldn't you, I guess, just circle back to you surrendering and looking at it as an omen of you eventually circling back to themselves.
Yeah, you can do that. You can take a step back when your relationship is crumbling, right? You can take a step back, work on yourself. And actually, this will affect, because there's a connection, it will affect the other, and then you can see what you can do, right? But it's always, you will attract on your level. So if you've worked on yourself, but the other hasn't, it's going to be difficult to come back together. You see what I mean? So by stepping back and working on yourself and giving a chance to the other to work on themselves and then see if they work, that's a great way to do it. But doesn't mean they're going to, right? Might not work.
Right. That's just like you, what you said before, if you're going to have belief in anything, then romanticizing romance itself is, you can have one way to follow it, that would be it. The best one.
Wait, say that again, sorry.
Like when you said at the beginning, of like that's a good idea to believe, and it's just like idea of if you're gonna romanticize anything, then romance itself is the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like the chaos that you can't understand.
Right, you can do a blend of this and Song of Songs, right? You can try and choose wisely, and if you still end up with chaos, then you switch to the Song of Songs where, okay, now what do we do, right? So Song of Songs, I think, believes anyone you have attraction, you can make it work, right? As long as you have attraction, you have enough. And then it's like perseverance, humility to change, and you can make it work, right? Aristophanes is more cautious. He's saying, first get to your highest vibration, then be smart with your choices. That's what he would, beyond just the attraction. He's saying, build yourself, right? Posanias is saying, make sure there's other things involved, similar values, and so forth. So a blend of the two might be good. You try your best to choose well, and then when you end up in chaos, you can switch books, right? Yes, go ahead.
What would you say about like that theory that like, well, not theory, but like the idea that people who are different are like they attract each other, like they have different characteristics, and they're supposed to like that's your soulmate.
Yeah. What he would say is probably on a deep level you're the same. So for example, probably on the level of values, or maybe spiritual level, you're the same, or maybe intellect, something is the same. That's what he would say. So for example, the guy is like a jazz musician, the girl is like, I don't know, writes novels. What do they talk about, right? But maybe they share like this kind of view of life that, you know, you want to create a family, or maybe they share the view of life that they want peace in the home, right? Maybe, so Aristophanes would say, what is really binding them together is a deep similarity that they share, right? And then you have some attraction, but what binds you is the similarity. That's what he would say, right? They're a Song of Songs, they don't care. So different, good, right? And now you have to navigate the difference, and it's very transformative. But the Greeks are more cautious. They're saying, make sure you pick someone like you, make sure you pick someone who has your own values, make sure you know who you are before you pick someone. All good advice, right? But in case you're a little reckless, just use the Song of Songs. Yes, Nord.
Well, one thing I was like, something that I think that's so that I don't think I necessarily agree with, I think the talking point is the fact of deserving. You know, on one hand, if you deserve a great love, that's what you get. And if, you know, you're not to your full capacity, you deserve whatever, you know, that is. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that's a very harsh way of looking at things. And additionally to that, the other thing I was going to say was, I'm losing it now.
No, I agree with you. Actually, this has no grace. You get what you deserve, right? So this is why I like the Song of Songs, because. Okay, go ahead.
That I feel like it's no risk, which I think is part of love. That
Yes.
Something that the Song of Songs very much focuses on. That love in itself is a risk.
Yes, yes.
And I feel like they're trying to minimize as much risk as they can. And I feel like that's not exactly what love is always about, you know?
Absolutely. The Greeks are very cautious, very prudent. They're going to make the smart decision to be happy. Right? The Hebrews, they just want something interesting, right? That's happening. But the Greeks are like, no, we need stability here. We need harmony. And this is what, so it depends, right? If you want chaos or challenge or risk, take the Song of Songs, right? If you want harmony, balance, order, follow this guy. Don't read the Song of Songs. You will not get balance, order, or harmony. You're going to get challenge and adventure and whatever, right? So you have to decide who you are, right? So yeah, very good observations.
I want to preface this to say that I actually don't believe in soulmates. I don't think they exist. But that aside,
Such a bummer.
that aside, even if you do, find yourself and do get into relationships. Relationships change people. You keep finding yourself. Finding yourself is not saying, okay, I found myself, I'm gonna go on. No, it's an evolution.
Yes.
It's an evolving trait. You don't get to say, okay, here I found myself, now I can go on and now I'm done. That's how it works. So how does that work in?
I would agree with you to a certain degree that in the song of songs you become yourself through the other, right? It's when you're in the contact with the other that you become your true self, your best self. That's the Hebrew way. But I do see the point of working on yourself a little bit. This is actually saying before you get in a relationship, if you want it to work, take some time to be single. Right, take some time to ask yourself, who am I, to work on yourself. And I think there is some truth to that. The fact that you take some time off, on yourself the best you can. But you're right, you will never get to your fullest you unless there is another crossing your path. But you can get a little bit, right?
But the way
Wouldn't you agree?
it means you have to flesh out your character, know exactly
Yeah,
what you want.
I disagree with that too.
Very
Yeah.
methodical.
It's true. But there's still a little work we can do, right? We can't just go in all messed up the way we were with our parents, right? That would be terrible, right? The way we were with our siblings. So I think there's room to work on ourselves on our own, but I think you're right. I agree with that ultimately the other shapes you to your highest level, right? There's only a certain level you can reach by yourself.
Maybe phrase it as if marriage is the last step almost.
Kids.
Second last
Kids.
second last step.
Kids will bring you to the highest level of sanctification, right? Beyond the marriage. So that would be the utmost highest, right? Yes, go ahead.
So you said that you have to be at your final form to find a soulmate.
He said that, not me.
Yeah, he said that. Wow. You just said his words out loud.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean if your final self is a half-assed person, you're only going to be having half-assed relationships?
That's a good question, because do we ever get to our final self? We're always a little bit broken still. So we will attract a little bit broken, and we should know that since we're a little bit imperfect, obviously they will be a little imperfect too, and we have to give them grace, right? So this actually helps what you're saying, to be tolerant that the other is not going to be fully finished, because you're not fully finished, and yes, you will have trouble. And the only way to resolve the trouble is not marriage counseling, it's work on yourself. Where am I broken? Where am I enabling this? Or where am I a jerk, right? And then, right, so as you work on yourself through contact with the other, you can then create a harmonious soulmate relationship. But he still believes, the Greeks really believe that you can build yourself by yourself and then attract the perfect person. But it's okay to not believe that completely. I'm also worried that I agree with Epstein that you can only get this far, right, by yourself. Yes.
So the case of soulmates being that they are, according to them, a part of you that was separated, wouldn't that thing that you need to be filled be what you're missing, and that's your soulmate?
Yes, but that thing that needs to be filled it's like a puzzle piece, right? You have the puzzle piece, but if it's messed up, it's not going to fit good with the soulmate, right? So it will fit good only if you are really a nice puzzle piece that you have worked on yourself to make yourself the ultimate puzzle piece, right? And then you will fit perfectly. So that's where I think you can be with a soulmate and not fit perfectly. Doesn't mean it's not your soulmate. It means your puzzle piece is a little crooked over here, rough around the edges. If you had worked on your puzzle piece, true, right? It would have been perfect. Does that make sense? So yeah, so if you're having trouble with your soulmate, means there's some brokenness that needs to be worked on, right? Yes.
Could this be similar to like how people say love is blind?
What do you mean?
Because like you kind of chase the people who you think will satisfy yourself and make you grow to be the best version of yourself. But in reality, when you're getting advice out of people who doesn't love that person, you're getting experience from people who think, oh, that person's not for you. You should go after somebody else who's really gonna be the best person for you.
So this love is blind business, I'm just gonna open up a parenthesis. I don't agree with it, right? I will explain when we do Rumi, especially. We're gonna see that love actually gives you deeper perception, actually, which looks like blindness to other people. So we'll get to that, right? But yes, I don't know. I'm not sure if we can rely on other people for the choice of our soulmate. I'm not sure yet. I'm not going to say anything because I'm not sure. Because sometimes I have seen couples who were clearly soulmates and everyone was against them. Right? So, because sometimes when people are advising you, they have their concept of happiness, which might not fit with your concept,
That's
right?
true, yeah.
So they're telling you, no, it's not gonna work because if you want this, it's not gonna work, but you might want that, right? So I'm not sure if we can rely on people for advice when it comes to the soulmate. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it in suspense. Yes, go ahead.
And, energy that they exude when they pass down their judgment of what they feel is a perfect relationship, it's not only what they think is happy, but also the insecurities that they carry.
Yes.
Which again brings you back to what you call, I guess, like imperfect people coming together. Because when people say we all mirror each other, it sounds kind of generic, but that's basically what they're getting at. Maybe that we portray is not only what we want to see, but also like the inner shadow that we kind of have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. You attract the same thing in light and in darkness, right? So you're attracting equally broken person and equally beautiful person, right? So to the degree that you have healed yourself, you will attract a high-level soulmate, right? So you have to ask yourself, if you're in a terrible relationship, maybe I need to take a step and work on myself, raise my vibration. You know this expression, to raise, it's a new age, I like it. It's like to raise your vibration, your frequency, raise your level.
People think it sounds
I know, I just love it. I love this vibration business. You know, raise your frequency so you can attract the same frequency, right? This is wow, you guys are really into the soulmate business. Go ahead.
I just think that like people are constantly with what's happening or it's like okay, just do it. Oh, I don't have to do like a few days. Like, I kind of want to work on myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes couples will take breaks, right? Where it's like the person feels like I've lost myself in you and I don't know who I am anymore. And at that point, it's not going to be good, right? So sometimes you take a break. So I can work on myself, you work on yourself, and let's see when we come back if we can be on a higher level, right?
I can say from my professional experience, like I'm in a relationship, but like there's times where like, I'm always with my boyfriend and I'll be like, oh, like, let's not do each other for like a few days because you have to be able to recognize that like you're not yourself sometimes.
Yes,
You're still
very good.
with your friend.
Right, excellent. So don't take this guy literally, right? See what he's trying to say, right? Obviously, maybe, you know, he's saying, you have to take the ideas, take what you can out of it, which is basically, you attract who you are, work on yourself to the degree that you can, right? You guys are not going to let me go today. Yes. Go ahead.
So you know how you said you want to work on yourself, like to your potential at your top, and then you look for people?
Sorry, what?
You know how you said to like look for your, like reach your potential at
Yes.
your top, and then you look for people?
That's yes, yeah.
How do you know what's your like max?
I'll tell you. I actually know that one. Your max is when you're happy alone. That's your max. If you get to the point where you're happy alone, it's your horrified look over there in the back. It's like, then you know you're ready to be in a relationship. Why? If you can't be happy alone, I'll predict you. First couple months will be great, and then you'll fall back to yourself, which is unhappy self, right? So the key to being happy with another person is learn to be happy with you, because I will tell you, initially, yeah, it'll be great. You'll be soaring on this, you know, kind of opium of, you know, or heroin of the relationship, but soon you fall back to who you are, and then who are you, right? Even in the relationship, you will fall back into your own unhappy self. The day you know you're ready to step out into the dating scene is when you're like, I'm good, I can be alone, I'm happy alone, I have my support system, I know how to balance myself, I know how to inwardly balance myself. The Greeks were really good on that. They talked about how to balance yourself inwardly. They had exercises. Can I be happy, stable, peaceful? Doesn't mean you're, you know, ecstatic, but you're stable. If you're there and you're happy alone, now you're ready. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Now, if you're happy alone, exactly. What's the point of yourself getting into a relationship?
I will tell you. Go ahead.
When you say you're happy alone, it's not in a lonely sense, also in a romantic solitude that you can carry and actually have your own voice rather than depend on your partner.
Yes. And moreover, the relationship is there for you to bring something to it, not for you to take, right? So if you're happy alone, you have this peace that you can bring to the relationship. If you're in the relationship just to take, what happens when they don't give you what you need?
But my question is, why would I be getting into a relationship if I already am happy all along? Why would I need to give that happiness into a relationship?
You go in the relationship because you have an urge to give of yourself. Let me stop on that, because this is a really, really good idea. This is a very important thought. The day you know you're ready for marriage, I will tell you, is the day you realize, I don't want to take, I want to give. As long as you're like, I want this, I want that, I want her to be like this, him to be like this, I want this to be like this, you are still in the taker mode, you're not ready. The day you have come to a point in your life where you have so much to offer and you have so much to give is the day you are ready for a deep committed relationship. And you cannot get to that point until you have become happy alone. Does that make sense?
Now, when you're saying so much to give, are you speaking on a material type of
All
plan or
levels,
spiritual?
all levels, right? Physically, you have so much to give. Intellectually, you have so much to give. Emotionally, you're a giver. When you're happy alone, this is when you're capable of bringing something to the relationship and you're not just there taking, right? As long as you're a taker, it's not going to work so good, right? But if you enter as a giver, which you cannot enter unless you're happy alone, then you can create something very interesting if you come in as a giver and not as a taker. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Piero.
I have two questions. If let's say people are in a relationship and they're like their broken selves, but they work on each other separate, like while still in the relationship separately, can they end up being soulmates if they're still? It's not like they weren't soulmates originally because they have.
Oh yeah, I mean. I don't know if I agree with him that I don't know if I agree with you that the soulmate is the perfect version of yourself. It can be the imperfect version of yourself, and then you grow together, right? So it doesn't mean, right, the soulmate you have to reach perfection. What I'm saying is you will attract. I'm getting all embroiled. What he's saying, let's stick with him. What he's saying is you will attract the highest level of the soulmate if you are yourself worked on. But the Song of Songs would say, like you, see, we got to switch between books, right? Song of Songs would say, if there's attraction, you can actually build into a soulmate relationship. Attraction is enough. And the soulmate relationship comes through experience, the deepening of the love, and then you have very strong bonds. So it's just two different paradigms. All right. Yes.
And then my second
you
one
can
is,
respond.
if most relationships, it's, compatibility is like a major part. So there's like chemistry. So when you get into a relationship, that person might not be soulmate, but there's chemistry and there's compatibility. So how do you distinguish? Let's say if you like been in relationships and like none of these are your soulmate. How do you know which soulmate if you're having compatibility and chemistry with each of them?
Okay, so chemistry where, right? That's the question. Are you only having physical chemistry, or are you also having intellectual, spiritual, emotional chemistry? You see
But
what I
don't
mean?
on every level you get into a relationship with a person, you are having intellectual.
Are you though? Are you? Not everybody have chemistry on every level, right? Some people are just physical, and you talk with them and they have nothing to say, Or some people are just intellectual and physically you're like, I don't know, right? So it's very rare actually when you have all those levels. So when you do, Posanias here steps in, right? Posanias is saying, make sure you have chemistry on at least 3 out of the 4 levels, right? Intellectual, spiritual, emotional, physical, right? Then you can negotiate the last one, right? Posanias would say, try to have chemistry on the most possible levels, then it will work, right? So that would be but the Song of Songs would say, you have the spark, the rest is you, right? The rest is the relationship, the ups and downs. Remember, in the Hebrew tradition, is the arranged marriage tradition, right? So they're not arranged marriage, obviously, in this text, but the idea is that if you have some chemistry, you can make it work. It's creative, right? A relationship in the Hebrew tradition is supposed to be creativity. So if you're creative enough, you can transform the thing into a soulmate relationship, right? In the sense that you're really compatible on every level. This is something you create in the Hebrew tradition. The Greeks are saying, first be, and then you will attract. So you have to decide, the two are opposite paradigms. You cannot reconcile. So you have to decide which one fits you better, all right? Are you want to be more prudent, more careful? Be Greek, right? If you want to be more reckless, you can still make it work through the Hebrew path, right? Remember, Hebrew path is for the reckless, right? But the Greek advice is pretty good. I like it. Build yourself the most you can, right? See what comes to you, right? And even if you're with someone now and it's like a bit tricky, then you turn to the Hebrews and you see what you can build together in terms of connection. Connection is never going to be completely there. Let me just take that away from your illusions. When you're with someone and you're expecting complete connection on every level, forget about it. It doesn't exist. Why? It would be boring. You'd be with Barbie doll or Ken, right? Whatever you want, right? So there will always be something missing. And this is what makes it the moment of creativity, the moment where you have to really create something out of nothing, right? That's when it becomes interesting. So if you're in a relationship where there's struggle, you can make it into a soulmate relationship. That's what the Hebrews will say. The Greeks would be like, you just attracted half-ass soulmate like you, right? That's what they would say. There's not much grace in the Greek. So, but it's still good advice. I maintain what he's saying. Build yourself to your maximum because you will attract who you are. And if you want to attract somebody high level, become high level. This basic advice I think is good. If you're not dating yet. If you're dating already and it's all messed up, read the Song of Songs. Okay, don't read this. Yes.
I just wanted to add on to the discussion. If you're happy alone, why be in a relationship?
Yes, good.
And well, 2 points. For one, we have to acknowledge that as humans, we do have a psychological need for companionship, whether that's in friends, family, or romantic relationships. But even further than that, like just to make an analogy, just because you're hungry, right? You can eat anything and it'll satisfy your hunger, right? But, if you want to be happier, you'll get something that makes you more happy. So I think that being with a partner when you're already happy with yourself is just to bring new levels of happiness and beauty and love to your life.
So it's such a good analogy. Let me just continue on that analogy. You know how you haven't eaten lunch and you get to dinner and you will eat anything, right? You'll end up eating that burger because you're desperate. But if you've had lunch, right, and you get to dinner and you're, more or less stable, you'll be able to maybe wait for the right dinner course or go to the right restaurant. So actually being happy by yourself makes you less desperate and therefore more likely to choose well, right? Whereas if you're unhappy, whoever passes by, you're going to latch onto them, right? So this is a really good analogy. The food analogy is very, very, very insightful. Anybody else? Oh, quiet all of a sudden. Y'all just want to go home now. Yes.
I was going to say, when you say that perfect connection doesn't exist, it's like that perfection, you don't really reach it. It's only more enhanced throughout the day if you choose to work on it rather than revert back to the old.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
say they want to reach perfection, they never really get to it because that's only
That's only what?
like perfection is only what you label it as.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really believe this, that if something is missing, quote unquote, this is now the opportunity to become creative with your beloved, right? And see how can we weave this bridge or this connection that we don't have, right? This is when the Song of Songs comes in handy. They're weaving their connection, even though they don't have it initially, right? Good. Great. Wow, you guys, I was going to talk about Agathon, but forget it. And we're going to skip Agathon. I'll talk about it briefly next time. We'll start with Agathon. We'll look at the problem of these three, and then we'll go into Diotima. So very nice discussion. Thank you. That was great. Yes.
For the next reading assignment, should we make it based off these three or?
No, you continue. The
continue.
pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.